Martin, how can I become a dictator?
It's not all that difficult, actually. Before I get into that, I'm flattered by all the scam Martin Butler sites that are now on Facebook. There's some on TikTok. On Facebook, I have about 200 followers. The scam Martin Butler site has about 60,000. But good work. You're pushing my name around for me, and I'm very, very grateful. Even though you're selling crappy things on the channel, and people are starting to say, well, Martin Butler wouldn't have all this crap on his channel. And sure enough, I wouldn't. So if they're trying to sell something to you on the channel, like crypto or something, it's not me. Anyway, I haven't said all that. It's very easy to become a dictator. People want a dictator. If you read Freud, he talks about going through a cycle. We all do it, and we do it in our personal relationships, and we do it when we elect a government. So the first part of it is romance. With the person, it's this person's going to sort my whole life out. It's going to be wonderful. With a government, the government will sort everything out, or a leader or whatever. They'll sort everything out. Everything will become wonderful. The romance is then followed by disillusionment. Because what is promised, or even just fantasized about, cannot come about. So we go through this loop: romance, disillusionment. Now, if you understand that, and you are a charismatic figure, you have to have some charisma. You can charm people into believing that you have all the answers. The great hope, the romance. It's said that the greatest romance in history was between Hitler and the Germans, because he promised them everything they wanted. The fact that he destroyed the country in the end is another story. Anyway, and you don't have to look very far to get some wisdom on all this stuff. If you read Spinoza, he said that people will strive for nothing more than their slavery. People want slavery. They want someone at the top who's going to tell them that everything's going to be okay. And of course, people at the top who are saying that have got their own self-interests at heart. And they're just telling people what they want to hear. Anyway, so to become a dictator, you have to have a certain amount of charisma. You have to understand mass psychology, that they want a savior. And they're quite happy to put themselves into a condition of slavery, as long as the person at the top knows what he's doing, or she is doing, is certain in their intentions and so on. Oh yes, he knows what he's doing. I'm going to follow that man, or woman, even though they're the person at the top is really just following their own dreams, or kind of raping the country or whatever, which happened in the UK in the between 2010 and 2020. The Conservatives, who are the Conservative Party in the UK, which is basically an asset stripper. That's all the Conservatives do. They strip the assets and give the assets to their buddies. So they needed to find scapegoats. Now, this is another thing you have to do to become a dictator. You have to find scapegoats. In the UK, first of all, I think it was the unemployed. They were causing all the problems. Then it was the ill. They were causing all the problems. And then it was the immigrants. They were causing all the problems. None of them were causing any problems. It was the Conservative Party just basically raping the country. So the people who voted the Conservatives in were voting because they believed that the Conservatives could offer some kind of utopia. And it didn't matter about the sick or the ill or the immigrants or whatever, as long as the householders saw benefits. Anyway, there is a precondition for a dictator, and that is people need to be generally dissatisfied with the conditions around them. That was definitely the case in Germany in the 1920s and 30s. The prior war had set certain conditions on them, and they were having a hard time of it. You know about the inflation, that the Deutschmark became almost worthless. And Hitler came along and said, well, I can sort all this out, and people believed him. So you need people to be dissatisfied, basically. And then you can appear as this bright shining star that's going to offer them everything that they have dreamed of. And you need the legal system on your side, obviously. If you've ever seen videos of trials in Germany during Hitler's reign, they're just mock trials. They're already set up. The legal system had been bought and threatened, basically. And they were quite happy to go along with the dictates of the Nazi Party. The army is important, so you need to make sure that the army's on your side. If you're going to be a real dictator, not just another form of democracy, because dictators don't want democracy, obviously. So you need to get the army on your side, and so you need to do some jiggling about their incentives and threats and so on. And once you've got those, the army and the legal system on your side, then you're kind of there to a large extent. You do need to appeal to people's base instincts. So you need to appeal to their hatred and their their discrimination, because many people, unfortunately, like nothing better than to find a scapegoat. So a dictator will always identify a scapegoat or scapegoats. Could be more than one. But the important thing, or one of the important things, is that the dictator needs to be loved by the people prior to him or her getting into power. They need to be loved. They need to have a love affair with the people who are going to get them in power, because that love affair is basically about promising the earth. And people like that disillusionment will follow, inevitably, people forget about. So, the other thing to say about being a dictator is that you could come to a sticky end. Hitler didn't have a very good end, neither did Mussolini, who I think was publicly executed. So, dictators are interested in themselves. They're not interested in the country, really, that they're happen to be a dictator in. And so the country typically ends up in ruin. So if you want a dictator, you need to think twice about what the end result might be, which might be ruin for your country and a whole pile of suffering. And ruin doesn't come along without casualties. When things start falling apart, there will be a lot of anger and a lot of violence.